In the vast timeline of human history, there are moments that act as pivots, points where the world turns and nothing is ever the same again. The year is 610 CE. The place is a cave suspended in the granite mountains above Mecca. A man, 40 years old, seeking silence away from a society drowning in tribal warfare and idolatry. He is not a king. He is not a priest. He cannot read. He cannot write. And yet, in the crushing grip of an angelic embrace, a command is given that will echo for eternity. Iqra. Read. This is the story of a book that birthed the civilization, preserved ancient knowledge, and captured the hearts of billions. This is the full story of the Quran. To understand the book, we must understand the void it filled. Arabia before the Quran was the Jahiliyyah, the age of ignorance. There was poetry, yes, magnificent odes to war, wine, and lovers, but there was no law, no central government, and no monotheism. Daughters were buried alive. Tribes fought for decades over a camel. Into this chaos, the first revelation descended not as a physical book, but as a sound, an oral recitation. The word Quran literally means the recitation. For 23 years, the revelation continued. It did not come all at once. It came in pieces, sometimes like the ringing of a bell, sometimes like the words of a man. It addressed the immediate struggles of the community. In Mecca, the verses were short, poetic, and fiery, warning of the day of judgment, challenging the social order, demanding justice for the orphan and the slave. These words were dangerous. To recite them was to risk death. When the Muslims migrated to Medina, the tone shifted. The Quran began to build a society. It laid down laws for inheritance, marriage, warfare, and commerce. It was no longer just a spiritual guide, it was a constitution. But here lies the mystery that baffled the poets of Arabia. The Prophet Muhammad could not write. Yet the linguistic structure of the Quran, its rhythm, its rhyme, its rhetorical precision was unlike any poetry or prose known to the Arabs. It challenged them. Bring a chapter like it, a challenge that stands unanswered to this day. When the Prophet passed away, the Quran was not bound between two covers. It was scattered, written on leather, stone, and palm leaves, but mostly it was written on the hearts of men. They were called the Hufaz, the guardian memorizers. But on the fields of Yamama, hundreds of these memorizers were killed in battle. A crisis loomed. If the memorizers died, would the book die with them? This triggered one of the most rigorous processes of verification in human history. Under the caliphs Abu Bakr and Uthman, the fragments were gathered. Every single verse required 2 witnesses. The dialect was standardized. Today, you can walk into a library in Uzbekistan, look at a manuscript from the 7th century, and compare it to a copy printed in London today. Letter for letter, word for word, they are identical. In a world of changing texts, the Quran has remained frozen in time. But what does it actually say? Beyond the laws and the history, the Quran is a dialogue between the Creator and the created. It tells the stories of the past, Noah, Abraham, Moses, Jesus, and Mary. It honors them, retelling their narratives not just as history, but as moral lessons. But it also looks forward. It commands the reader to look at the camel, the mountain, the sky. It speaks of the orbit of the sun and moon, the formation of the embryo in the womb, the barrier between sweet and salt water. For the 7th century desert dweller, these were signs of God's power. For the modern mind, they are startlingly accurate observations of the natural world, centuries before the invention of the telescope or the microscope. The Quran commanded, read, and that single word sparked the greatest intellectual revolution the world had ever seen. While Europe slept in the Dark Ages, the Islamic world, driven by the Quran's instruction to seek knowledge, lit up. The Quranic script became the vessel for algebra, chemistry, optics, and medicine. Because the Quran required precise timing for prayer, Muslims invented complex astronomy. Because the Quran required travel for Hajj, they mastered geography and map-making. The paper you write on, the coffee you drink, the numbers you use, these are the byproducts of a civilization built on this book. It did not suppress science, it demanded it. Today, 14 centuries later, the echo of that cave has not faded. It is the most read, most memorized, and most recited book in human history. For nearly 2 billion people, it is not just a book, it is a companion. It is recited in the ears of a newborn and whispered over the dying. It has been scrutinized, criticized, loved, and feared. Yet it remains an unchangeable anchor in a rapidly changing world. From the silence of Hira to the bustle of the modern world, the story of the Quran is the story of humanity's search for connection with the